Alright, that should mark the end of the failsafes. Can you hear me? Hello? I swear, if I've come down all this way, only for the audio to fail, I'm gonna be absolutely furious. Okay, it seems we're in the clear. Now that that's settled, forgive me for sounding rushed, but it's far from safe around here. The clock is ticking, and once it hits 0, we're playing with fire. I've stumbled upon an old back door into a heavily restricted part of the archives and managed to link up to an internal computer using an antique servo skull. I must reiterate, our time is severely limited, and once it expires, any whiff of suspicion and I'll be branded as a heretic, triggering the relentless pursuit to uncover my location by Inquisitors, an outcome I'm desperate to avoid at all costs. Now that I've made the urgency clear, join me, Imperial historian Saturnine, as we delve into the annals of the Great Crusade, one of the most pivotal periods in the early history of the Imperium, led by the God Emperor of mankind. The Great Crusade, spanning from approximately 798 M30 into the first decades of the 31st millennium, lasted a little over 2 standard centuries, and it marked a remarkable era of rebirth and of unprecedented technological progress. This extraordinary chapter in human history emerged from the ashes of the Age of Strife, a catastrophic 5,000-year period of techno-barbarism. The Emperor in the flesh stood at the helm, guiding humanity towards a brighter future. It was here that we find the golden age of the Imperium, a fleeting moment of brilliant glory before a slow descent into what the heretical may call cultural stagnation, political turmoil, and unending warfare, as witnessed in the aftermath of the Horus Heresy. The Emperor's vision was clear: to unite all of humanity under a single banner, putting an end to interhuman conflicts. A grand plan that aimed to ensure humanity's dominance over the galaxy, which was deemed essential to combat the ever-present threats of chaos, xenos races, and the fragility of human nature itself. To execute the Great Crusade, the Emperor formed the Space Marine Legions, which would later evolve into the Adeptus Astartes. The use of accelerated gene culturing is said to have led to flaws in some legions, while other sources claim that said flaws were inbuilt by the Emperor himself. This played a major role in the tragedy preceding the Horus Heresy itself. The previously mentioned forces, along with the support of the Mechanicum, as mandated by the Treaty of Mars, would embark on the noble mission of spreading the Imperial truth and enforcing Imperial compliance across human-settled worlds. At its peak, about 203 standard years into the Crusade, 4,287 primary expedition fleets were active and engaged in this monumental task, with an additional 60,000 plus secondary deployment groups involved in maintaining Imperial rule. In the Sol system and other key Imperial star systems, 370 expedition fleets regrouped and refitted, while millions of remembrancers, official Imperial artists, and journalists documented the heroic endeavors of the Imperial warriors. They recorded this grand epic in pictures, words, music, and statuary, preserving the legacy of the Great Crusade for posterity. Within the ranks of each Imperial fleet, there were hundreds of iterators comprised of Imperial philosophers, rhetoricians, and propagandists, all who embarked with the monumental mission of spreading the Imperial truth to every corner of human-settled space. Their aim was to persuade populations to the advantages that Imperial rule would bring. Some of the more notable expeditionary fleets included the First Expeditionary Fleet, known as Principia Imperialis, and for many solar decades, this would be the primary Imperial force that carried out the Great Crusade, commanded by the Emperor himself, and it was eventually handed over to Horus, the first amongst his sons. The next notable expeditionary fleet would be the 7th. At the head of this crusade fleet was Lord Commander Suleiman Grimm of the 1st Legion, the Dark Angels, and they were instrumental in the Imperial compliance of consolidized worlds of Laskal in the celestial wasteland known as the Grail Abyss. The next fleet of note would be the Expeditionary Fleet, led by Primarch Reboot Guilliman, who commanded the 13th Legion of Astartes, also known as the Ultramarines, and Titans from the Legio Tempestus. While not representative of the entirety of the expeditionary fleets, This small sampling is of note due to recent events. This Great Crusade was commanded by the Emperor of Mankind, and it experienced a defining moment when the Crusade was able to vanquish a colossal orc wog during the Ulanor Crusade. Following this remarkable victory, the Emperor would return to Terra, embarking on a top-secret project deep within the Imperial Palace. His goal was nothing short of groundbreaking, the opening of an interdimensional portal into the Aeldari Webway. This bold endeavor would bind the Imperium as never before, and offer a respite from the perils of the warp. In a monumental decision, the Emperor appointed his favored son, Horus, primarch of the Luna Wolves Space Marine Legion, as the Imperial Warmaster. Horus was vested with the full authority to steer the Great Crusade as he saw fit, including commanding his fellow brother primarchs and their legions. Simultaneously, the Emperor would lay the foundation for the Council of Terra and the Imperial Bureaucracy, the precursors to the Senatorum Imperialis and the Adeptus Administratum. These institutions marked a shift from the Emperor's role as ruler and regent of humanity to a government better aligned with the needs of the Imperium's common populace. However, the Emperor's panache for secrecy birthed the simmering tensions amongst certain primarchs. Ultimately, this weakness would be exploited by the ruinous powers, leading to the corruption of 9 primarchs and their legions into the service of chaos. This dark turn of events ignited the cataclysmic civil conflict known as the Horus Heresy, signaling the end of the Great Crusade and the Golden Age of the Imperium. From that fateful moment to the present, in the late 41st millennium, the Imperium has been mired in stagnation, oppression, religious discord, and ceaseless warfare. However, this is not what the Emperor had intended, for he had long bore a myriad of titles and operated behind the scenes, leading up to the Age of Strife, collecting information, resources, data, amongst other things, in order to avert humanity's impending doom. The fruit of this labor was originally the first prototype super soldiers and the precursors to the Space Marines, known as the Thunder Warriors. These genetically engineered warriors would become the vanguard during the Unification Wars, and helped the God Emperor unite humanity under the banner of the Raptor Imperialis. Eventually, this would lead the Emperor into realizing that he would need generals with abilities akin to his own to reunite humanity. For this, the Emperor would commission the aid of others like him in order to create the primarchs, 20 transhumans of unparalleled sophistication. These superhuman beings, fashioned using the Emperor's own genetic code, would eventually become destined to lead humanity's unification. Yet, unfortunately for the Emperor and humanity, the ruinous powers were threatened by the Emperor's designs and managed to breach the protective barriers around the Emperor's hidden gene laboratories. With sinister intent, they spirited away the unborn primarchs, scattering them across the galaxy and tainting some with the corrupting influence of chaos. However, in another iteration of these records, Erda, the woman who was used as a template for the mother of the primarchs, seeing the designs of the Emperor, attempted to spare her children the plight of being turned into weapons of war by scattering them across the galaxy. However, regardless of which telling is true, the Emperor would shift his tactics while maintaining his unwavering goal by harnessing the remaining genetic material and using it to cultivate thousands of sets of gene seed. Each held a set of 19 distinct organs intended for the implantation into the bodies of adolescent human males, in a process that would ultimately transform them into the first true Space Marines, known as Astartes, in honor or slight to Amar Astarte. As time would go on, the Emperor would raise 20 legions of Astartes, each bearing gene seed organs crafted from the DNA of a primarch. The Emperor would orchestrate the transformation of many individuals from the population of the newly unified Terra, in a painstaking process spanning years. Now operating under new conditions, the God Emperor would encounter a formidable obstacle in his path to the reunification of humanity. This would be the Mechanicum Empire of Mars, and the devotees of the cult Mechanicus, who had long maintained their independence, and their domain over the Red Planet was characterized by a distinct sense of autonomy. However, rather than resorting to outright warfare like he would at a later date with other civilizations, or wielding the outright threat of violence, he used the allure of groundbreaking technologies and their faith in order to form an alliance with the tech priests. This historic partnership would be born in the 30th millennium and would lay the foundation for the burgeoning Imperium of Man, Despite his reservations about tech priests and their strong adherence to religion, the God Emperor realized the invaluable asset the Mechanicum was. Mars boasted grand manufactura, spewing forth unrivaled mechanical output alongside the hoarded wisdom of ancient technologies. These assets were essential in constructing the military force required for the grand undertaking of reunifying humanity across the galaxy. For their parts, the tech priests perceived the Emperor as a being of remarkable scientific knowledge and technological prowess, bearing the mantle of the Omnissiah, a living avatar of the machine god in the mortal realm. The cult Mechanicus would follow the now returned Omnissiah in his quest to guide humanity towards its true path. This alliance would be solidified during the pivotal Treaty of Mars, alternatively known as the Treaty of Olympus Mons, which was enacted in 739 M30. And this treaty stands as a testament to the Emperor's diplomatic acumen, which sadly was employed relatively sparingly throughout the Crusade, where he realized that rather than embarking on a protracted war with the technocults of the ancient Mechanicum, brokering an alliance guided by pragmatism would aid in the success of their shared vision. In exchange for constructing a formidable war fleet and supplying weapons along with machinery for his legions, the Mechanicum received a hereto unparalleled autonomy as a client state within the Imperium, where they would be allowed to continue the practice in their faith, defying the imperial truth. This was accomplished due to the arrival of the Emperor on Mars and his landing on the iconic Olympus Mons, actively overwhelming and causing a litany of tech priests to be overcome with the belief that they stood in the presence of the living Omnissiah, their machine god incarnate in human form. Through his arrival, the Mechanicum was able to not just maintain autonomy over Mars and their other forge worlds, but increase connections between them. In turn, they would relinquish their pursuit of certain abominable intelligences, leading to them officially joining the Imperium. This would lead to the proper start of the Great Crusade, the mightiest and most audacious military endeavor ever undertaken by humanity, and it stands as a monumental chapter in history. This epic odyssey, led by the indomitable forces of the Emperor of Mankind, hinged on the backbone of countless warp-capable vessels transporting superhuman warriors along with vast legions of Imperial army soldiers across the cosmic expanse. In the wake of the Emperor's unyielding vision, the first expeditionary fleets ventured boldly into the cosmos. Ahead of these colossal armadas were a smaller but no less valiant fleet of independent flotillas, led by mortal leaders who would be the predecessors of what would become rogue traders. Many of these individuals were once rulers of independent realms that had been cast down by the Emperor during the Unification Wars and later during the Great Crusade as humanity expanded its dominion. These individuals were given a stark ultimatum: bow before the Emperor and pledge allegiance to the Great Crusade or face his ire. While pride led some to reject the perceived yoke of servitude, others chose service and acceptance of the Emperor's warrant of trade. However, this choice came at a cost. Rogue traders were tasked with venturing far ahead of the vanguard of the Great Crusade, often accompanied only by their own armed forces and the assets granted to them by the Emperor. For these intrepid souls, returning to Terra was a nigh impossibility. However, in the Emperor's wisdom, even their demise would continue to serve mankind. Many of these rogue traders vanished into obscurity, meeting their fates in the far-flung corners of the galaxy or falling prey to nameless Xenos hordes far removed from Terra. Yet their contributions to the Great Crusade would be unquestionable. As the Imperium expanded its dominion, so did its armada. Countless marvels of lost technology were reclaimed. Some were wrested from their reluctant custodians. Others were willingly surrendered as tribute to the master of mankind. Amongst these vessels were unique creations, constructed through means that even the most adept of the Adeptus of Mars could not hope to replicate. The Terminus Est, the Nicor, the Marbilis, and the Phalanx, to name a few. Additional patterns and classes were also crafted and replicated, as each branch of the Imperium's military developed its own distinctive array of warships. The warships of the legions Astartes were often purpose-built for planetary invasions, supporting robust prow designs and resilient armor plating that harnessed some of the most devastating weapons ever created. Beyond functional necessity, each fleet aligned with the nature of the Legion, whether it be the sleek black raiders of the Raven Guard, the ornate crimson and gold battlecruisers of the Blood Angels, and the Aura-steel behemoths of the Iron Warriors. Each ship reflected the essence of their legion. The broader naval forces of the Imperium, known as the Armada Imperialis, consisted of a vast array of warships, each tailored for different roles in the void. Battleships, colossal engines of destruction, boasted forward-facing armaments and broadside batteries. Sleek destroyers and agile warp runners provided swift and deadly support, while vigilant peak fighters and formidable star fortresses patrolled the cosmic realms. These were complemented by an array of transports, arcs, conveyors, and supply ships, as well as the forces and vessels of the Mechanicum proper, each a unique engine and a marvel of technology geared for war. Amidst the struggles of the Great Crusade, a pivotal event occurred, marking a turning point in the Great Crusade's momentum. The Emperor was reunited with one of his primarchs on the mining world of Cathonia. This was a critical moment that would alter the course of history. The rekindled bond between the Emperor and his beloved son, Horus, the future Warmaster of the Imperial armies and the arch-traitor of the heresy, breathed new life into the Imperium's expansion. This emotional connection forged a unique friendship between the two, leading them to save each other's lives on numerous occasions. Horus was entrusted with the command of the 16th Legion, the Luna Wolves, who would draw their ranks from his homeworld, Cathonia, to replenish that which was lost during the Crusade. And as the Crusade would go on, less and less Terran-born Luna Wolves would stand. This newfound direct access to the Primarch's genetic code expedited the production of Space Marines, in essence reinvigorating the Great Crusade. The Imperium, now under the banner of the Imperium of Man, accelerated its mission, bringing numerous worlds into Imperial compliance through diplomacy or, when necessary, conquest. As time passed, all the Primarchs were rediscovered, with the exact order of discovery somewhat obscured in Imperial records, as Horus officially stood as the first rediscovered Primarch, while Alpharius of the Alpha Legion was claimed to be the last. Rogel Dorn is concretely known to have been the 7th Primarch found, while Lionel Johnson emerged from the death world of Caliban after Leman Russ of the Space Wolves was recovered on Fenris. Magnus the Red of the Thousand Suns was uncovered on Prospero before his brother Lorgar of the Word Bearers. Angron of the World Eaters was reluctantly saved from his homeworld of Nuceria following the recovery of Perturabo of the Iron Warriors. The Great Crusade expanded further still now that all the Primarchs had been rediscovered. The compliance of New Worlds meant access to their resources, enabling the construction of more starships and the marshalling of vast forces to sustain this monumental effort. With all the Primarchs discovered, it also meant that the production of Space Marines could experience a dramatic acceleration, reducing the time needed to forge new Astartes to a mere standard year at the zenith of the Great Crusade. However, the haste in creating Space Marines came at a cost, as there were notable mental defects and unique idiosyncrasies which began to manifest in greater and greater numbers within the ranks of the superhuman warriors. By the 31st millennium, approximately 2 centuries into the Great Crusade, the Imperium had reclaimed vast regions of the galaxy, seemingly inaugurating a new era of enlightenment and progress for humanity. Yet, in the wake of the Great Crusade and its relentless expansion, a profound transformation swept across the galaxy. Peace for humanity, a long elusive dream, seemed to finally emerge from the shadows of warfare, truly ending the strife that had plagued mankind for millennia. This era of enlightenment shattered the chains of superstition and liberated countless souls from the oppressive grasp of Xenos. However, this illumination is recorded to have come at a cost, a price humanity was not always willing to pay. To guide humanity into the light, it is often necessary to be forceful, as humanity will fight, kicking and screaming as it is dragged into the light and out of the darkness, resisting the allure of truth for the comfort of ignorance. The Emperor the unifying force behind Terra's newfound harmony, it seemed, had begun to achieve his goal not primarily through diplomacy and alliances, but through the massing of armies. The pursuit of enlightenment and peace came at the end of a blade, and inexorably was linked to the shedding of blood. This harsh reality defined the Pax Imperialis, and as the Great Crusade ventured into the cosmos, it carried this enduring truth with it. The struggle to attain universal peace was not limited to overt acts of war, however. The enemies of the Imperium were multifaceted, with some harboring treacherous intentions in their hearts, hiding behind masks of loyalty, while sowing discord. Covert tools and agents became instruments of the enforcement of the Imperium's ideals. Even within the legions, select individuals wielded ancient and nearly forbidden weapons. These shadowy forces were the vanguard of the Imperium's pursuit of peace, often operating in the shadows in order to maintain order and protect humanity's lofty vision. For the Emperor, the ends did truly justify the means in the pursuit of his grand dream. He understood the urgency of uniting mankind and preparing for an uncertain future, one in which the malevolent chaos gods might one day unite to thwart his plans. Records show that his pursuit for universal peace at any means was driven by the Emperor's own profound foresight and awareness of the machinations of time and destiny. As the Imperium expanded and the Great Crusade's forces dissipated into numerous expeditionary fleets, the once unbreakable bonds between primarchs and their emperor began to fray. These fleets separated from one another for solar decades, creating physical and emotional distance that strained their connections further still. It was during this period that troubling developments began to truly arise. Two legions, the Night Lords and the World Eaters, became infamous for committing increasingly horrific atrocities during their conquests of new worlds. The noble pursuit of knowledge by the Thousand Sons Legion took a dark turn as they succumbed to the seductive whispers of Tzeentch, embracing sorcery further and further still. Meanwhile, the Word Bearers and their unwavering religious zeal regarding the Emperor as a divine being led to a profound rift, and when he unequivocally rejected their attempts at worship, the clash would be exacerbated by the Emperor's unwavering commitment to his atheistic philosophy, the imperial truth, which he sought to forcefully impose on all corners of the Imperium. It would later be noticed that the further the expeditionary fleets separated, a significant shift occurred within the ranks. Many of the Astartes and members of the Imperial Army began pledging their loyalty primarily to their respective primarchs, rather than to the Emperor himself. This growing disconnect between the military forces and the people of the Imperium, who saw their Emperor as the ultimate symbol of unity, went largely unnoticed, especially on Terra. The fractures in loyalty that emerged would set the stage for profound conflicts and betrayals, ultimately leading to a pivotal moment in the unfolding history of the Imperium. In the wake of Horus's triumphant campaign against the largest orc wog ever faced by the Imperium during the legendary Ullanor Crusade, which the Emperor hailed as the most significant victory in the history of the Imperium, led to Horus being appointed as Imperial Warmaster for his exceptional leadership during this campaign, meaning he would be entrusted with supreme command over the Imperium's entire military apparatus, encompassing Space Marines, Imperial Army forces, and the vast legions of starships humanity had mustered. However, even as this new chapter of unity was celebrated, shadows of uncertainty began to lengthen. The Emperor, enigmatic as ever, disclosed his intention to return to Terra for a classified undertaking aimed at triggering the next phase of human cultural evolution. His plan involved a millennia-old artifact, the Golden Throne, a remarkable psionic augmentation device unearthed on Terra. Its purpose was to open the Aeldari Webway to humanity, enabling instantaneous interconnection between Imperial worlds. This would render traditional starship travel obsolete and eliminate the Imperium's reliance on psychers for interstellar navigation and communication, thus mitigating risks. The creation of a human webway was the Emperor's grand vision, intended to be a gift of unrivaled significance, promising an era of progress and peace once the Great Crusade reached its conclusion. However, his decision to withhold information about this monumentous undertaking from Horus, who had been his closest confidant, and the Emperor's abrupt retreat to Terra, with the Great Crusade unfinished left the Warmaster deeply perturbed. Adding to Horus's discomfort was the fact that not all his fellow primarchs greeted his promotion with open arms. Angron, Conrad Kurz, Pederabo, and others harbored resentment. Moreover, a prevalent but erroneous belief amongst Astartes emerged, suggesting that the Emperor would disband or significantly reduce the Space Marine legions once the Great Crusade concluded. Horus viewed this as a betrayal of the sacrifices they had made in the name of the Imperium, as it seemed the Emperor intended to relinquish control to mortals who, in Horus's eyes, lacked the understanding of honor and sacrifice necessary to rule. These seeds of discontent and animosity would prove a fertile ground for the ruinous powers of chaos to manipulate the Warmaster's mind. The turning point came when Horus sustained a grievous wound during the closing stages of the Great Crusade. Luna Wolf's captains, desperate to save their leader, unwittingly played into the hands of the sinister first chaplain of the Wordbearer's Legion. They entrusted Horus to the care of the Chaos Sorcerer on the planet Davin. Said sorcerer would subject him to a malevolent ritual that cast aside his consciousness into the warp. Within the warp, the first chaplain, acting as an agent of the dark gods, embarked on a campaign to corrupt the Warmaster. He presented Horus with visions of the Imperium's future, portraying the Emperor as a divine figure revered by countless pilgrims in grand cathedrals. This spectacle of devotion kindled a burning jealousy within Horus, compelling him to envision a future where he would replace his father as the master of mankind. Upon regaining consciousness, Horus was irrevocably tainted by the warp. He now harbored the sinister ambition to overthrow the Emperor, initiating the cataclysmic Horus heresy. In exchange for his allegiance, the Chaos Gods bestowed upon Horus the formidable power of the Warp, sealing the darkness within his soul. Ironically, the grim future of the Imperium that the Chaos Gods unveiled to Horus, marked by ignorance, suspicion, and ceaseless conflict, would be brought about by his own actions, culminating in his betrayal of the Emperor, as Horus attempted to become the fifth Chaos God, the Dark King, at the apex of the Horus Heresy. The Horus Heresy itself would culminate with the banishment of his 9 traitor legions into the accursed Eye of Terror, with multiple primarchs becoming the champions of the 4 Chaos Gods. In this clandestine transmission, I, Imperial Historian Saturni, iterate my intent to unravel the hidden chapters within our Imperium's glorious history, whether it be information locked behind the vaults on Terra or whispered only amongst the most trusted circles of knowledge within the Imperium. However, this might be a risk that could lead to the ire of the Inquisition and a terrible fate. So for now, this marks the end of the records of Imperial Historian Saturni.